again, and welcome back. Lead instructor, Laspina, and owner of Spear Training Group here. We are going to discuss the Arasaka Industrial Park yet again. Now, in the first video, we did a bit of an analysis, a review of the current design and some of the weak points that were therein. Just to take a closer look, we point out that all of our primary gates have different types of accesses to them, and they defeat the purpose therein, including this one as well. They defeat the purpose therein. For example, from here we can simply rush this on foot and gain access to this secure area, and it's kind of a question of why do we even have some of the security in place that we do. So I'm not going to delve too deep into that. There's an entire video on that. One of the things I do want to go over, because we are starting this particular process, I did miss a vital component of a analysis and threat assessment, and that is the personnel. Now, unfortunately, I've already completed the mission in my playthrough, so I can't really go back and review it too well. But one of the things we do want to be aware of is the status of the guards and how they are being handled and taken care of and scheduled. Now, in the universe, they're probably being worked to the bone quite a bit, and probably not paid as much as they should be. But also notable that the challenges of an individual guard and their likelihood of giving up information, as we see, I believe, with the guard at this gate, who just allows access due to some social engineering. These are things you would want to be aware of during an analysis as well. So we would want to check our personnel and ensure all of our personnel are vetted and is secured as much as possible, and ensure that they have the right checks and balances to evaluate each other and know some of those warning signs that you want to look. On that note, this video is not going to be about that. We already made a video of the analysis, so we're not going to delve too much back on that. But what we are going to look at are some of the updates that we would recommend. Now, before we get too far, one of the things we need to really be aware of is that there is a bit of a threshold here. On one end, we have convenience. On the other side, we have security. And what do I mean by that? If we're extremely convenient, we have low levels of security. That means you can just park your car and walk on it. If we have high levels of security, you're going to have to park your car in probably a separate parking lot, or you're going to have to do badge access where you get inspected. From there, you're going to have several thorough checks and sign-ins and screenings before you get to where you want. Obviously not suitable for all of them. So on the original design here, this facility appears to be maybe 25 or so percent. It has some security in place, but it's mainly organized to be very convenient. And we see that a lot with just how the general design is. Point being, we have very open access ways. We really only have one initial screening area, another area that's going to badge and make sure you're hopefully in the right space, and then you're immediately into the principal asset. And they're not very far apart either. This is very much a convenience path. Besides, once you get through this first entryway, you have access to one of the other principal assets. So we can see that this is very much designed to be a more convenient facility than it's meant to be a secure facility. With that said, we do have some inconsistencies within the design, such as this very, very nice wall that we have. For granted, yeah, there are some upgrades to the wall that we could have, but overall, it's actually a pretty solid wall and perimeter barrier. In addition to that, we have a completely segmented security facility and multiple guard checkpoints. These would allude to making us think it is a much more secure facility, but due to the ease of access directly into several principal assets, it very much leads me to believe this is leaning more towards convenience instead of security. Now, on that assessment of secure and convenience, We're assuming we're right about here right now. If we're going to make something more secure, obviously we're only going to push so far. We're usually not going to ramp it all the way to 100. However, the general counterbalance to going that far into a secured facility is cost. So, Arasaka in this case would have to decide how much they want to spend on securing their perimeter and securing their facility, and that would dictate how we would instigate or initiate some of these changes. Let's take a look at some of the changes that we may have. Immediately off, we need to identify zone. All of these areas in pink are joint coverage, be it from the main building or the secondary building over here. Whatever the case is, these are joint coverage. Their cameras are going to help cover some of our weak points from our primary facility, to include this control tower. So there's going to be a bit of a joint overlap and joint coverage that's going to happen. And there's also a joint support. In the event something happened at the main building, we can send our own response elements, and vice versa. So everything in pink is considered to be our joint areas. Those are things that we're not necessarily concerned about directly ourselves, but we're going to work in tandem with our other assets to cover. Next up, we have our wall. This is a general layout of our wall. We do actually have more wall segments underneath here as well, but this gives us a good idea of our wall. Instead of having those horizontal louvers, we would change that to vertical louvers instead. And that's pretty much all we got on walls. I don't have too much to say on the wall. It's actually all right. I would probably suggest at least moving out a partial partition out a little bit further away as well. That way we can reasonably assume the only traffic that's coming in here is vehicle and foot traffic, and it limits the amount of access area to just those areas there, at least easily viewable. It makes it very easily observable and monitorable and respondable. And we can send guards out to those areas to investigate, and it makes it a lot harder to say, oh, I accidentally stumbled out here. Oh, no, you didn't. There's a fence there. So our walls are fairly good. We do want to change up some of the wall design and maybe include some outer barriers a little bit. Next up, we got contractor zone. We don't see these too much, but as explained in the original video, due to any interior contractors, whatever, this is all going to be their primary work area because it's not relevant to us. It is completely isolated and separated out, with the exception of one door in the back of our critical asset that we would assume is going to be extremely closely monitored and observed just for security's sake. Next up, we have security and facilities only. So these are going to be, this is not going to be contractor access. This is going to be people who work for Arasaka directly, be it their security officers or their facilities officers or their administrators and office personnel. As explained in the video, this appears to be some type of logistics checkpoint, maybe even with a little bit of security access. Our main guard shack up front is definitely going to be security and facilities only. Security and facilities only. We do have a little bit of logistical stuff or maintenance related stuff within our subtunnels. So as far as access control goes, these areas are going to be all facilities only. And we have this building over here. Now we can't get into this building directly, but we can get on top of it, I believe. Yeah, we can get on top of it. That's our roof access. And this is definitely going to be a facilities and security area only. So what does that mean? If you have, say, an air conditioning guy coming in to work on these areas, they're going to need to be escorted or at least closely monitored by security or facilities. There's going to be a lot more background checks for people that are accessing these areas. Next up, high security. These are going to be our principal assets. Our security control center and our principal asset room are going to be pretty much security exclusively or only the necessary people. The principal asset, obviously, this is, well, one of the main reasons we're here. And our control centers, we really need to monitor access to that, because if we lose that, we lose our capability to respond and be effective. So those are our general zones that we're looking over, and those are very important to annotate. Depending on how access is granted to this facility, we can't really see too much into that. Be it if it's like, oh, I'm a trucker. Let's see. There we go. Oh, I'm a trucker. I'm coming in. I'm going to back in and drop my stuff. Okay, well, how does that trucker get access? Is he on a registry somewhere? Does he have an ID badge? How does that go? And the trucks that are in that particular mission, I think I actually did it on my playthrough. You just need to hijack a truck out front here and drive it up to an entrance, and then you're good. First of all, that should have been observed on cameras. We'll get more to that here in a little bit. And there should be some additional systems either within that truck or at these gates that would have caught that infiltration attempt. But there don't seem to be. Again, social engineering possibly. So those are our general sectors and what we're going to be observing for. Let's take a look at our doors. This is just a general overlay of the doors. As you can see here, we have full security control, access per user, and logistics MX, or emergency. This roll-up door here within the perimeter, we don't have access to it, so we don't exactly know what it does. But I'm going to assume that it's all logistics related or emergency exit. This is that critical door on the back of the principal asset. Again, heavily monitored, so we got to manage that. Next level that we have is access per user. Access per user means if you're designated to work in that area, security will give you a checkbox on that particular door, and then you will be able to maneuver inside this door. Now, just because you're able to go in and out of one door doesn't mean that you're going to be able to ingress through another door, because they can, well, make sure you don't check that. This might be your only ingress point to do any work in this area, and that would be a pretty solid security perimeter to do that. You want to, access control is a huge part of secure facilities and perimeter. So monitoring those accesses and creating plans for who has access to what would be one of the more critical areas. So if you got contractors coming in that don't need to be escorted, but they need access to, say, this outer building, you can get them checked in over here. They could park their vehicle, they could check in, and then however, as we discussed, however they're getting through here, whatever, from here they can just walk foot traffic all the way in, badge in, do their work, and be out. They don't have access to any other areas. They would be tripping alarms. Depending on the systems that you're using, they would be tripping alarms if they attempt that access. So that would be access per user. It's granted for what you're needing and nothing more. Last up is full security control. Without security's blessing, you're not getting into these areas. For example, the main gates. We already have security stationed here, so they're going to be stepping out and engaging with or meeting these people. We already have security at these gates, so we're already present. May as well have that as a security controlled environment. Besides, anytime something like this blind gate is going to be opened up, we need to be able to have a view outside prior to it being opened. So that would be very much a security blessing type thing. And all of these logistics doors along this wall here, this would very much be a security access, because this goes directly into the principal asset. Not only directly into the principal asset, but directly observable from outside the facility. So we would really have security present on this type of area, and unfortunately this area is not segmented off like an airlock. So even if this was open for work and someone gained access and they snuck in, if we had a secondary barrier, we could at least isolate that individual. But instead, if they get through this one door, now they have full reign of our principal asset, one of our principal assets. So that is definitely going to be a secure, security only type deal. And this door, at least in its current state, would need to be a security only access. Even though facilities might need to go up there and do some work, do some maintenance on some of these AC units or whatever they're going to be, we would need this to be monitored by security and possibly even manned by security because it is directly into our principal asset. Let's take a look at our security team. Now, this one becomes tricky because this is very much based on how many people do you want to pay all at once. At the bare minimum, assuming 8-hour shifts, there are 3 8-hour shifts in a day. So for one 8-hour shift, we would be looking at almost 20 officers for one 8-hour shift. For 3 times a day, that's going to be almost 60 officers for one day. That's 60 officers every single day, 7 days a week. Likely people are going to call in, so you can maybe mitigate that through your response team, whatever. But that's about how many people we're looking at. Let's take a look at the roles that we have. First and foremost, our control officers. These are the ones going to be operating the cameras, monitoring alarm systems, and dispatching guards to go wherever they need to, or whatever is deemed necessary for the site. Every site has their own guidelines, so we're going to have to identify what those are, and those are going to be the responses and necessary for the control officers. Control officers are tasked with ensuring the security of the personnel in the site, generally in that order. In this universe, it might be site first and then personnel. We don't really know. But we're looking at 3 control officers, at least 2 in our primary control center, and 1 over here in our secondary control center. Now here's where we're going to get a little more convoluted. I'm assuming that our control officers within our exterior are all monitoring our exterior security posture. So, our exterior control officers are monitoring that. There are some documents out there, I can't remember the name of it. It's a security guideline document for certain facilities, and it states that a control officer can be expected to monitor no more than 5 monitors at a time. It doesn't state how many cameras or systems they can monitor on those 5 monitors, but it states that 5 is considered to be about the maximum for one officer to observe. Now, with 2 officers observing in our primary control center, this will be able to cover all of the cameras and systems that they have in there, plus the additional cameras that we're going to be involving here in a minute. You will see shortly. We're also going to assume that our interior control officer is monitoring the interior of the facility. So we have segmented roles here. These officers ultimately control the entire site, or vice versa. Maybe our more secure officer controls the entire site. But this control officer's primary concern is the primary principal. These officers' primary concern is the exterior of the facility. So that gives us our responsibilities. We have static officers. We have 1 static officer in this checkpoint here, 2 static officers over here, and 2 static officers over here. Static meaning they stay in place. They observe and respond to threats in their immediate area, and at least having supporting officers in our 2 public-facing entrances allows for a better security presence on tap. Next up, we have our rovers, or our moving guards. For our exterior, we have a rover that will generally cover this entire area. And for this rover, he will generally control this type of area, with a little bit of overlap where needed. These guys are mainly going to be providing lunch breaks, bathroom breaks, and general patrol routes. Constant security presence. We may, depending on who this little sky bridge is going to belong to, we may even have a 3rd rover on the exterior that just patrols around here in this principal asset. Point being, our rovers are the most flexible capability they are going to be our fastest response as well. Because if we call an immediate danger, say up here at the front gate, our rover is hopefully going to be the one to immediately converge on that area. Though we have response officers that will get there as well, our rover is possibly going to be there already. Now for the inside, we have similar roles. We have at least one rover on the ground, which is going to just be moving about on the ground floor. Requiring one on the ground floor ensures that we're not in the way, but we're at least present. We're showing presence and observation. Two on the higher walkway can show observation as well, and we can also even have one of these rovers come down to the ground floor every so often and ensure just presence is constant. As for our response officers, as stated before, we do have a room over here that could theoretically be response officers just stationed, and more response officers over here just stationed. We may even have an additional officer or two over here in our contractor area that we would dictate them as a response officer. They can just kind of monitor our exterior as needed, but for the most part, because this is all public area anyway, we're not really going to be responding to everything. Unless we do, as mentioned earlier, where we segment off a area with a small fence, then we can have this response officer actually turn into a rover and do our exterior stuff. Additionally, we have our response officers from off-site that can assist if things get weird. So all in all, we're looking at quite a bit of officers to secure this facility down pretty well. That would be about the recommended organization that we have. And one other thing, we want to make sure that we don't do the video game trope of the officer doing a planned route where he spends 5 seconds here, 3 seconds here, and has a 10-second conversation here with the same guy and just back and forth. The control officers would need to monitor and be aware of that and ensure that the times aren't predictable, and they would need to plan around and schedule things to be as diverse and unpredictable as possible. Now we're going to get into the bigger change. This is going to be a lot to look at too. Before doing so, I'm going to take off the security team, and we're looking at cameras. As we look here, we have a yellow dot with a line pointing out of it. These are going to be our static cameras. They point at one thing and look at nothing else. We also have cameras that are a yellow dot with a black dot in the middle. These are our PTZs, or pan tilt zoom. PTZs are much more expensive than static cameras, and in all of our examples in game, they are PTZs. So if we invest heavily into our PTZ budget or camera budget, we can actually create coverage over the entire facility. And even though this looks like a lot to observe, I can promise you it's not too much. There's a certain level of kind of T-Rex vision that we do. Control officers will be observing several different areas. For example, let's say this here. They'll be observing all these cameras, and whenever they see movement, that is kind of what catches the eye. Kind of how the human eye works in general. And there's that old Jurassic Park reference.
Keep absolutely still. This vision's based on movement.
Point being, we can throw up a large amount of these cameras and be able to observe them. And not to mention, because we have segmented control officers, where this one control officer over here, he is monitoring almost exclusively the main building, whereas our two officers over here are monitoring almost exclusively our exterior and I guess interior areas. I promise you this is not too many cameras. So let's take a look at what we got a little bit. So our principal, we have static cameras all around the center point looking down our primary walkways. We have static cameras midway down each of those walkways that look across, creating an interlocking camera system. And we have static cameras at all corners along the walls to observe down the same interlocking systems. In addition to that, we have PTZs that we can move around and orient based off of whatever work's going on. For example, if we have a large critical asset in the center here, maybe like some type of float with sensitive data on it, we can orient our PTZ to look at one entrance, orient PTZ to look at another entrance, orient PTZ to give a broad view, and orient PTZ a large patrolling area. Those are going to be our primary response cameras. In addition to that, we have one static camera at each of our loading docks that comes through here, so we can observe and confirm that there is somebody standing there before we open the doors. In addition, we have cameras watching doors. We can see ingress and egress in the areas, cameras watching ladders so we can see elevation changes of employees, and cameras watching walkways that security are on to confirm security presence is active like it should be. In addition to that, we have cameras inside and outside of some of our more critical doors and areas, like so. And some cameras in our blind spots that we don't have much coverage over. These on the corner are going to be a combination of static camera and PTZ, static cameras that can't be changed, and PTZs that can orient wherever is necessary or respond to. Because sometimes you'll have something pop off over here, and this static camera just doesn't have the nice resolution that is necessary. So taking control of your PTZ and zooming in on that will really help in getting an idea of what's going on and better responding to it, dispatching people. As you see throughout the rest of the facility, we have that same theory. Our PTZs are going to try and be kept on corners as much as possible because these are our reactionary cameras, so they can observe everything within a given area. As an example, if I put PTZ in the middle here, it can really only observe 180 degrees, which, though is a lot, is not the same as 270 degrees of coverage. We need to maximize the area. And if we're able to not only maximize, but increase our capabilities of these cameras, it would be much better. Obviously, cameras just on all of our other entrances. Because this can be cumbersome, let's go ahead and turn that out too. Last thing we're going to look at are turrets. Turrets are generally just going to be a supporting element and role the ability to respond. If we are able to, we would have a couple of turrets within our critical asset room. Because again, this is 100% somewhere that we would need to defend. This is one of the primary reasons we're here. So having additional supporting elements within that area is going to be extremely nice. And placing some of our turrets within strategic zones is going to help as well. For example, if we have a turret on top of this building, due to the high angle that it would be on top of the building, he probably would not be able to hit things within a certain distance from the building. And this would kind of be a little bit compounded depending on how far out. So it can't angle down because the building itself is going to be a, but it allows a wide range of flexibility as far as it can observe all around our critical asset or principal asset entrances. It can help in assisting to protect our primary areas and things like that. So that's a pretty good bit of coverage from a roof mounted turret as though. Similarly here, if we had this one mounted on the roof, there's a certain distance by which it can't angle downwards, which, okay, that's something we just give, but it is going to be generally out of reach of tampering without, access control perimeters, but it's going to allow responses to everything within a pretty high angle. That's pretty wide angle just from that one turret alone. And on our main control center, we do want to have turret capabilities for sure, because we really need to control this. Losing this asset could be very dangerous. So having it pop directly out the wall, it can protect itself from one main entrance, pop directly off from this corner. It can do additional protection there, popping directly off this wall can help cover here. As you see, we have overlapping angles from multiple turrets, which is very important. Even if one gets compromised, we still have a little bit of a security perimeter. One of the last assets that I don't have a model for at the moment would be drones. We know drones exist in the universe, and if capable, Arasaka should 100% try to have these in the air at some given time. And we actually have a little bit of a landing for them just over here. This little roof, you can stage a couple of drones and their charging stations, whatever. And we can actually have one drone in flight patrolling at any given time. Whether that's automated or manually controlled, doesn't matter. But having that ability to respond to something, zip over and look at somebody trying to come in and be a deterrent would be a great asset to any type of response plan. You would ideally want to keep about 3 of them on hand, because you're assumed to have one down for maintenance at all time, general maintenance or repair maintenance, and 2 other for capability of response. So is that always going to be the case? No, but at least having 1 extra there ensures that, okay, if one of them goes down, then we really need to get that other one up, because we can't afford to lose a second. That's all I've got for a redesign of the area. As stated in the original video, the biggest asset that we can do is add better camera coverage and a better planned out security patrol system or perimeter system. Ensuring that our access controls don't just allow foot traffic to walk straight in, but make this some type of gate that is similar to the wall and blocks foot and vehicle traffic everywhere that there is a gate, and increase our camera presence on that. Not to mention, anytime we have our camera presence pick up something that's unusual or slightly concerning, dispatch extra guards. You don't often see that in games, right? But how would that look if you are trying to social engineer your way through a gate here, and the security team notices that, well, a control officer notices that you're over here talking to a guard, and that guard hasn't radioed anything their way or confirmed anything? That is unusual. Then what if a couple of additional guards show up? Not for nothing, but we did some tests after the Nuremberg trials of how well persons of authority can change the answers that someone gives, and how responsible you can hold an individual for that whenever a person of authority is present. Point being, if we have additional guards that show up during an inspection phase, it's going to make it that much harder for an engineer to get through. That's all we have for a little bit of a redesign on the security perimeter of the Arasaka Industrial Park. Any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave them. Thank you.